Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix Critical Mode Any Percent Speedrun tutorial, and in today's episode we are going to be covering Twilight Town 2, which is a pretty quick visit. All we have to do is the Berserkers fight, so this isn't going to be a very long video, but it is definitely one you will need to watch because although it's only one fight, Berserkers is not a fight that you want to mess around with. It can be very dangerous, and the strat that we do is kind of difficult to execute, so you're going to want to practice it a lot. And I'm actually going to show you two different versions. The first version uses an ether, is also a little bit slower, but is, I'd say, more consistent and more manageable, a little bit easier. The second version, no ether, a little bit faster, but is subject to a little more RNG. A little more you got to work around. And you're actually going to be able to mix and match the parts of the fight. So there's kind of, I would say, three distinct parts to the fight. There's the first wave where it's 4 Dusks. The second wave, that's a Berserker and 4 Dusks. And the third wave, that is 3 Berserkers. Both versions of that I'm going to show you handle the third wave the same way. But you can actually interchange the first and second wave between the two versions. So if you liked the first wave of the first version but the second wave of the second version, you can do that. That's totally fine. It's just going to depend on whether or not you'll use an ether, basically. So yeah, with that out of the way, we're going to get started by doing some world hopping on over to Twilight Town, which is honestly not very easy. I'm really like mashing the analog stick to try to get my lock on to get over all the way over to Twilight Town. Sometimes you accidentally go where you don't want to go, but it takes a little practice. We're also going to have a quick menu that we do first, where you're going to equip Magnet over top of Blizzard. As I was saying in Agrabah, at this point, your customization might be a little different than mine, at least where you put it. Again, I was saying I have I have Blizzard on Triangle, so I replace Blizzard that's on Triangle with Magnet on Triangle. If you want to do that, or if that's how you have it, great. But if not, it's just Magnet over top of Blizzard. And then we are also going to be summoning Genie before we get into the fight. And we want to make sure that he is on Wisdom Genie. So he actually spawned on Wisdom Genie, but I go ahead and change it before I enter the fight. So this is the first slightly slower version. What we're going to do is open the fight by immediately going into Wisdom Genie, or immediately using his limit. And what I want to try to do is essentially evenly disperse my hits on these enemies. So I'm trying to target switch from the enemies directly in front of me over to this guy because he's the only guy not getting hit. In this example, I don't do a wonderful job of that, just saying. But that's the goal here. And once it ends, they're all going to come after Genie because the Dusks retaliate against whatever just attacked them, which in this case is Genie. So we want to go stand next to Genie, and we're just going to do a bunch of reflects. If you're lucky, you can kill all 4 Dusks in 2 reflects, or if you've dispersed your damage well. But in this example, it takes me 3, which is no big deal. The only thing you want to make sure you're doing during this part is make sure, 1, you're reflecting correctly, and 2, that you're trying to stay in the middle of the arena, because you need to be prepared for the next wave to spawn, and you want to be in the middle. So, see what that looks like. Reflect. Now they're coming after me. I reflect. And last 2 coming after me, and reflect. So, right after all these 4 guys die, a Berserker is going to spawn in, as well as the Dusks that I was talking about. The Berserker, when he spawns, his Claymore is away from him. And what we want to do is be between his Claymore and him so that we can reflect the Claymore as he's trying to grab it. So let's see what that looks like. So as I was saying, the Berserker is right here, but the Claymore spawns actually right here. This big white blob is where the Claymore is gonna spawn in. So as you can see, we are in between the Berserker and his Claymore, which is exactly what we want. We're gonna lock onto him, reflect the Claymore, go into a Magnet, and then immediately use Genie's limit. Reflect, Magnet, Genie limit. And all of the enemies are caught in this. They're getting hit by Genie's limit, and they're also being bounced in and out of the Magnet, which is also doing damage to them. Once this ends, you're going to immediately mash into another magnet and then go into Wisdom Genie once again. Just like that. And right now, you'll need to use an ether. But what I would say is, if the Berserker is still alive, go kill the Berserker first. In this case, the Berserker died, so I threw an ether and then finished off this last Dusk who happened to be alive. Sometimes the Berserker will live, sometimes 2 Dusks will live, sometimes nothing will live. It's just kind of dependent on how you happen to be hitting the enemies. Also, I don't think I wasn't saying this, but as I'm doing this magnet, I am constantly just kind of like target switching between all the enemies. Actually, that's not even true. I take it back. I'm not doing that. I'm just locked onto the Berserker. Ignore what I just said. But yeah, the Berserker died. I threw an ether, and then I finish off this Dusk. And when I kill him, I want to get into a corner. Doesn't matter which corner, but you just want to get into the corner of the arena as these 3 Berserkers spawn in. Which I do. I dismiss Genie, and what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to get a Magnet Ultima kill, or a Magnet Trinity Limit Ultima kill without having to use the finisher. I don't know if we've actually seen an example of this really yet. So let me just show you what happens in fast motion, and then I'll talk you through it. So that's pretty cool. What's happening there is when you're using the Ultima, it's knocking the Berserkers all around, but the magnet is constantly catching them again. And every time an enemy gets caught in magnet, it takes a little bit of damage. And we are knocking them out and knocking them back in so fast that it's doing enough hits from just the magnet to kill them completely, to take all of their health. There's a certain setup that we do to make this happen. It's not 100% consistent, but it's the best we have. And if it doesn't happen to kill, no big deal. You just use the finisher. But you do want to make sure you time it well. So let's go back to the beginning and I'll talk you through it. So again, we're getting into the corner. I dismiss Genie so that I'm ready to use Trinity Limit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock onto the closest Berserker and then wait for them to jump. And after they jump, I'm going to quick run along the side of the arena, still locked on. And when my quick one finishes, I'm going to use a magnet, go into Trinity, and immediately use the Ultima. So this quick run timing is the key. What I like to do is I like to wait for them to be up in the air a little bit before I start my quick run. So instead of immediately when they jump, I wait till they're like about here. I don't have a perfect visual cue, but I let them be in the air a fair bit so that when I quick run, I can just immediately magnet and use the Trinity Limit to kill. The key to making the magnet and Ultima kill is your spacing and the height. So I like to think of it as a right triangle. So the Berserkers are in the air. There is a line straight down to the ground, and then there's a line straight to Sora. And the distance between Sora and the Berserkers should be on the hypotenuse of that right triangle, if that makes sense. You need them to be in the air, and you need to be at a distance from them in order for this to work. But it can't be too high in the air. If it's too high in the air, the Ultima is not going to reach, and you're barely going to knock them out of the magnet at all, and you're going to be put in a bad situation. That's why this one takes a lot of practice. You really need to work to get this Ultima down, or this magnet Ultima down. So once again, it is quick running down the side after they're in the air, magnet, Ultima, hope it kills. Couple things I want to go over here. There is a risk after this quick run, if you get a little too mash heavy, that you're accidentally going to do a finishing leap instead of going into the Trinity Limited Ultima. It feels bad. I would still say to try to pop the Ultima as quick as possible. Hopefully you can get a little damage out of it and then maybe do the other parts of Trinity just in case to hopefully squeeze out a little more damage. But really it's a skill issue, frankly. You just gotta not mess up your inputs on that. The other thing I want to mention, and I don't have a good explanation as to why this happens, but sometimes, even if you're in the corner and locked on, unfortunately, some of the Berserkers might decide not to jump. What's worse is the Berserker closest to you might decide not to jump. He might just stand there, and these other two guys might come after you. The best thing that I can recommend, really, is either A, attempt to target switch as they're coming over to you. So you would just be mashing target switch, hoping you get to the next guy, and do the same quick run magnet Ultima timing. Hope that works. Or what you can do as well, instead of going for the Ultima, at the same time when you'd be normally quick running and going into the magnet trinity limit, just keep quick running into the corner or into another corner, and they'll jump at you again. If you're far enough away from them, they'll jump at you again. So I would have kept going to the corner, waited for them to jump, and basically try the strat again. But I think those are the most common fails that you might have during this part of the Berserkers fight. But that's it. That's the fight. And this is the version with the ether, and now we're going to get into the version without the ether. So we still start with Wisdom Genie, but instead of going immediately into the limit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide dash the Dusk in front of me. I'm going to lock onto him, and then I'm going to quick run back into the middle. These guys are going to retaliate against me. They both gave me the slow attack, which is actually pretty bad luck. Usually one of them gives you the fast attack, and what I would recommend is if the Dusk that's giving you the fast attack is not the one you're targeted on, target switch over to that guy so that you are focusing on him. But what we're going to do is we quick ran back into the middle. We're going to reflect, use a magnet, and then go into Genie's limit. Now this next part is tricky. So I was mentioning before incorrectly that I was target switching. In this case, on the Dusks that are in this magnet, I am target switching. I want to make sure every single one of these Dusks is getting hit, and if I notice one has more health, I want to stay on that guy. Because I want to make sure they're all at pretty low health so that this next combo that I'm about to do kills. And this right here is kind of the tricky part. We're going to do a ground combo with finishing leap as the first finisher. And what we want is for that finishing leap to kill all 4 Dusks. Maybe some of them might die on the earlier hits, but regardless, by the finishing leap, we want all 4 Dusks to be dead. The other thing we want is that we finish this attack being in the center of the arena, so again, we are ready to reflect the claymore that the Berserker spawns. And basically what I'm trying to do is I get around to the side of these guys so that my combo is taking me in the direction of the center of the arena. So let's see what that looks like. So I get around to the side. I unfortunately auto-target onto this guy. I wanted to target this guy, but it works out to me just the same. Fortunately, because these guys are in the center of the arena. And my first hit happened to knock both of these guys, so they're going to start coming towards me as well. But I'm just going to do hit, finishing leap. And it worked out that it killed all of these guys, and I'm in the center of the arena, ready to land, go into a reflect, just like before. But instead of a magnet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a thunder, and then I'm going to finishing leap. And that finishing leap is going to stagger the Berserker so that he drops his claymore. Reflect, thunder, finishing leap. We're going to pick up the claymore, collect all the enemies, and go against the wall. What's kind of rough about this strat is, unfortunately, a lot of the times as you're doing this Claymore RC, some of the Dusks might fall out. And that's why we go against the wall. That's increasing the odds of them not falling out of the RC. In this case, I get lucky and they all stay in and it kills. Sometimes they fall out. It happens. You'll just have to go clean them up, and that is what slows this strat down. That's why this version is a little bit more inconsistent, but has a higher top speed and also doesn't use an ether. But yeah, so we use the RC and hopefully it kills everything. If it doesn't, your first priority would be going after the Berserker if it's still alive, and then you go clean up the Dusks. And then the third part is exactly the same. We get into the corner, lock onto the closest guy, quick run, magnet, Ultima. That's the fight. And that is all of Twilight Town 2. We do a little bit of quick running on over to the station. Hop on the skateboard. And that's the end. hopefully that was helpful. I think I went over everything that goes into the Berserkers fight. You can pick and choose, again, as I was saying, what works best for you. There are also even more other strats that exist, but I think these two are the best that you could possibly use, and the most consistent as well. We're always fighting for consistency on this fight. So whichever one is working most for you, go with that one. Don't worry too much about like the couple of second difference there might be between the two fights. I don't think there's anything else for me to cover, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.